We live in a twilight world. Today is the 23rd of March 2025. And it was 2 years ago I done Illusion Warfare Report number 3. Yeah? Where I covered the French pension reform protests and riots in Paris. The protests and riots were happening all over France, but obviously the main stuff that was getting pushed out into the universe was the stuff that was going down in France. Yeah. Obviously, a very special mirrored date there, a once-in-a-lifetime date, 23rd of March, year 2003. I was actually there the day before, and I think I was in Paris for about 4 days. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I got there a day before, and obviously the main day in question was this day here, when the biggest gathering / protest in French modern history took place. Some people said 9 million people turned up to Paris. I don't know about that. That seems a bit ridiculous to me. But there was definitely a lot of people. Maybe 20, 30,000 people turned up. And yeah, man, it was a good Illusion Warfare report because I got good video evidence of how they do it. Yeah, how the Operation Gladio style tactics are used to, stage, choreograph fake and phony fighting between rioters and the riot police, and then sort of merge it together with, genuine protests where people are just walking along the street, minding their own business. So this is the thread in question. Yeah, over on Twitter, or X as it's called now. I'm sure you can find it yourselves if you want to go take a look. The Thread Reader app version, which is like a version you can read on the internet, is not so good these days because there's so many adverts on Thread Reader app. It makes the thread itself look stupid. So it's better to go watch the original. Go look at the original. Yeah. If you go on my profile on Twitter, the pinned tweet, the very first tweet at the top, if you click on that, it's all in there. All my best stuff is down there, yeah? I've put all the stuff that's really, worthwhile in that first tweet. So, go check it out if you want to go and check it out. So way before any sort of protests and riots started in France, these videos started emerging on the internet of British soldiers running around on the streets of France, doing the whole rehearsal of urban fighting. Yeah? So and I thought, what the fuck is this? So I started to check into it, and turns out there is a NATO exercise taking place on French soil. The largest NATO exercise in modern French history, right? So French were leading it, but it was a NATO exercise, and I think around 90,000 troops were involved, allegedly. We don't know the real number, yeah? These videos, obviously very, very interesting. Yeah, you just got members of the public totally bemused and confused. They got no idea what the fuck's going on. They're just trying to get about their daily business. There's like a woman walking around with her shopping bags. There's old people trying to cross the road. There's people just trying to drive their cars. I've got one video somewhere where there's like a woman with a pushchair, having to maneuver around soldiers that are on the floor manning the general purpose machine gun. It's crazy stuff, man. Yeah, but obviously for the stuff that I cover, yeah, because got to remember, at this time I was like the #1 person for calling out the war in Ukraine. So when this type of footage was turning up, I was saying like, well, what's the difference? Yeah, I said the only difference here is that in France, people live in the towns and villages. In Ukraine, they don't. Yeah, Ukraine has a ridiculous amount of empty towns and villages. That's how they can get away with staging war. And I was saying a lot of the footage you're seeing, or a lot of what the soldiers are doing, is they're rehearsing. Yeah, they're doing training and exercises and drills in these empty towns and villages, but you're getting shown this footage as if it's real, as if they really are fighting the enemy that are over there in the yonder. So this was great stuff for me. But of course, yeah, I looked into it. It was Exercise Orion 23, the largest exercise on French soil since, I think, the Cold War, or maybe even World War II. Don't quote me on that because I can't remember off the top of my head. So I looked into Exercise Orion, very interesting stuff. It was divided into 4 different sections. And originally I just wanted to go over to France to see this kind of stuff happening in the streets. I thought, wow, this would be a great thing to capture to further my case when it comes to proving that all of these wars are being engineered, sensationalized and exaggerated. Yeah, especially like at a time with Ukraine and whatnot. But then what started to happen is we started to get in the protest and riot stuff being pushed through the Black Mirror out into the universe, out into a collective conscious. Yeah, this idea that Paris was burning. And for me, it was a no-brainer. For me, it was obvious this was a NATO Operation Gladio engineered event. The two were intertwined, yeah? The biggest NATO exercise on French soil combined with the biggest civil unrest in France. You know, it was connected. It was the same thing. It was connected. So obviously, you know, I was pointing this out. I was shouting it from the rooftops. And then I had to take it to the next step and go and back up what I said with a boots on the ground report. And I went over to France, and what can I say, man? I got some great footage, yeah? And I think I obviously, you know, I'm going to credit myself here for doing a very good job of not only capturing it happening, but explaining how they get away with merging a genuine protest where people are turning up to voice their concerns about what's going on, and then close by will be a staged, choreographed, theatrical, fake and phony fight between riot police and rioters. They're all Operation Gladio troops, NATO troops, playing both the same role. They do their fake and phony fighting, but what happens is, when it's presented to us at home, yeah, via the mainstream media, via alternative media, it's merged together as one event. But we'll get into that later in this video. So here we are. Here's the press kit for Orion 23. worth a read if you want to. I'm not going to go through all of it right now. But yeah, man, like I said, I think this is under the guise of this, engineering and manipulating the civil unrest in France was all part of this. A fictitious but credible scenario. I'm going to read this quickly. I'm not going to read this. Basically, it was supposed to be about testing NATO's ability to fight Russian-backed militias in a European country. Yeah, they switched the names around for legal reasons. It's not called Russia. I think the bad guy is called Mercure, and the country playing like Finland is called Arnland. So it's basically, that's the superficial thing they give us. But I'll read this. Orion 23 is based on a scenario developed by NATO to study the various phases of a modern conflict. Although the narrative is fictitious, the exercise remains credible. The scenario enables all components of a military force, land, air, navy, cyber, etc., to work together as a coordinated team and to achieve the various training objectives. The intensity of the exercise further reinforces its realism. For example, the exercise will include the participation of a sizable adversary force, FORAD, armed by French and Allied units. So, all the key buzzwords are in there. A fictitious but credible scenario. Cyber is a big part of this as well. Yeah. I might find it in a minute. I don't know where it is. Somewhere it says about they're basically testing their cyber warfare, information warfare capabilities. They need to know that they can control social media. And I think that was a big part of this, yeah. Well, I'll say, yeah, they engineered. It was an engineered event, all of the protests and riots in France, the pension reform riots. I think as well, what they were testing most of all is that they can control and manipulate the social media network and the alternative media. Conveniently, that week, I got thrown off of Twitter and YouTube. So there and then, they've just done exactly what they're talking about in regards to cyber. They can just eliminate anyone who's then, questioning the narrative. Phase 2 of Orion includes a cyber component whose main objective is to test the effectiveness and coherence of the Ministry of Armed Forces chains of command with regards to defensive cyber warfare. Besides, it aims to test our resilience in the face of numerous and varied cyber attacks. Like DefNet 2022, Orion integrates the information environment in order to involve actors of the information warfare and test the coordination of our effects. In other words, cyber warfare, they're going to make sure that their actors are the ones that are appearing on social media, and all of the others, people like me that are questioning the events, they'll just get thrown off Twitter for a week or thrown off YouTube for a week, yeah? So, of course, phase 3 is what's most important here. Yeah, the civil/military affairs. Now, what's strange is all of the phase 1, 2, and 4 all have a timeline, but phase 3 doesn't. It says the timeline for phase 2, yeah, the 20th of the 2nd up to the 11th of March. This is phase 3 and there's no timeline. Crisis management. Interdepartmental crisis management. Yeah, and as you can see, it's got Paris highlighted there. And then it goes straight onto phase 4. And the phase 4 timeline, which starts at the 19th of April. So their timeline is missing the whole chunk of phase 3 for obvious reasons. That's because that part is covert, because that was the protests and riots in and around all of the major cities in France, yeah? By the way, I think... could we put that down as a double cross? Or are we stretching a bit there? I don't know. Up to you to decide for that one. Is that a double cross or not? There's technically two lots of double crosses, so I don't know if that counts. Getting over to Paris was very easy for me. Yeah, very cheap as well. No problems there whatsoever. Weirdly enough, it's like easier for me to get to Paris than it would be to get to London or to Manchester. Yeah, within my own country. So, yeah, man, getting over there, piece of piss. Unlike some of the places I go to, which, you know, the logistics of getting there is a nightmare usually. So one of the first things I noticed when I got to Paris was every street corner had a massive pile of rubbish. Yeah. And, you know, very convenient, isn't it, when there's civil unrest, that on every street corner there's a pile of rubbish for the protesters to burn. This, for me, was all part of it, all planned. They planned it so that the bin men, the rubbish men, whatever you want to call them, the civil servants of Paris were on strike at the same time, you know, leaving all this stuff here, which is ideal in a riot situation. It's no different than, you remember the BLM riots when pallets of bricks were just appearing on street corners, right? Giving the rioters something to throw. Same here, you're giving the rioters something to burn. All the Operation Gladio troops would have to do at night time is run through the streets of Paris with a match, a box of matches or a lighter, set all of these piles of cardboard and rubbish alight, and that's it. You've now made it look like Paris is on fire. How many guys would you need to do that? 100 Ghost Legion guys? Yeah? Driving around in an Uber? You know, teams of 2. One driver, one gets out. He starts lighting the trash pile. Most importantly, he then films it on his smartphone, sends it to his guys back, you know, at the HQ, and they will then disseminate it all across social media, yeah? So he's just got to get like a 1-minute video going around the fire. They'll split that up into 10 slightly shorter videos, all from different angles, making it look like it's coming from multiple people. This is a big part of the cyber warfare aspect of the hidden hand's control over reality. Yeah? I want to make it clear that the Ghost Legion, yeah, the League of Shadows, the Operation Gladio foot soldiers, their greatest weapon in this day and age is a smartphone camera. Yeah? This is all part of uploading it to TikTok, Instagram, yeah? Completely dominating the social media sphere, making it look like something is far greater, far bigger than it is. This is how you sensationalize and exaggerate stuff, yeah? It's now far easier for the intelligence services to push the fiction of whatever, protests or war, now with smartphones, other than having to rely on the CNN type people, which at the end of the day could easily turn around at any point and just blab about the fact they're just pushing a lie. If you get what I'm saying. So I, obviously, once I got to Paris, I immediately went to my very cheap hostel and checked in. Yeah. I wanted to like get myself down to like the bare minimum stuff to carry. And yeah, man. Anyway, at reception, I met the young university cosplaying journalists and photographers. Yeah. They had the gas masks, the helmets. Yeah, they were ready to live action role play the protests and riots in Paris, man. In this photo, I don't know if you can see, but I've hidden the guy's tattoos because he was a nice guy. Him and his girlfriend actually gave me a lot of intelligence, yeah, a lot of information about where people were going to meet and what was going to happen on the main day. Yeah. I knew to go to Bastille, the place where they'll meet, because of these cosplayers. So just to be clear, they were very, very nice, very, very friendly. University students, I'm guessing. And this was like probably a part of their assignment to go and, you know, cover the protests in Paris. Definitely as part of the problem. You know, if you turn up and participate in the illusion, you're bringing it to life, yeah? But these guys don't know that. Most people don't know that. 99% of the people in the world don't get that little fact of illusion warfare, and it's the belief and the participation that brings the illusion to life. Most people don't get that. You know, it's beyond them, right? They've been raised as either atheist or Abrahamic. Yeah, the concept of magic, yeah, focus, energy, and attention, manipulating, you know, the reality and all of the magnetic energy within it. They're not going to get that. That to them is just new agey woo-woo bullshit, right? So yeah, they were extremely nice to me, very friendly, very helpful. Definitely part of the problem with their cosplaying actions, but you know, it is what it is. Most of the world, 99.9% of the world is cosplaying. Yeah? Is live action role playing this stupid fucking reality. And even most of us, we have to live action role play stupid things just so we can get money to keep a roof over our heads and food in our fridge. Now this jogger over here is very interesting. He's been jogging alongside him. I don't know if you can see him there, but the green trainers. He was jogging alongside the protests. Now he might be an agent provocateur. You see all these guys running back now. Who are they? Is that French military? Is that undercovers? Is that agent provocateurs? I don't know. The day in question, my trademark thing of having a newspaper. Let's watch a video and I'll talk over the top of it. So yeah, man, this is like in the morning. I just had breakfast. I left my hostel, got myself a newspaper, which is my trademark thing. And then I seen the mob, yeah? So I was just walking the streets of Paris, just generally towards Bastille. And then I seen the mob gathering. The mob heading down there, yeah? Now these guys, you have to understand, these guys are genuine protesters. They are genuine working people of Paris. They want to genuinely protest the pension reforms. So they're not part of the Operation Gladio. They're more of the victims, right? But I want to look over here. If you can keep your eyes over here. Because I don't really understand what's going on here. So maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe I'm seeing things not there, yeah? But this is obviously some sort of French government building. And people are just turning up. These kind of posh... I'm not say they're posh, but they're well-dressed, aren't they? And they're turning up. And they're standing outside. So clearly you can see there's like a metal gate there. And these guys are standing outside. Now, at the time, I wasn't really looking at these lot. I was looking at a jogger. There was a jogger running around. He was wearing all black. And he had bright green trainers on. We'll see him in a sec. Now, what I'd done here is I'd set my action camera up and I put it on my little tripod so it's just filming in this direction. While I was filming, there we go, here's the guy in question. I was filming in the opposite direction on my other camera. But this guy, I was keeping my eye on him for a while. There was something not right about him because, you know, when people go jogging, right, they leave their house, they'll do a loop around the park or wherever and come back. I watched this guy go back, forwards, keep pretending to tie his shoes. He was pretending to do stretching. And now he's just stood alongside these guys who are well dressed. But none of them seem to be looking at him like, hey, jogger, what the fuck are you doing standing with us? They clearly all know each other. So the well-dressed people and the jogger, they're all part of the same group. Who are they? I don't fucking know. I'm going to guess they are plainclothes police, perhaps, who have been tasked with, you know, just keeping an eye on the mob. And I guess particular ringleaders of the mob, yeah? Maybe a few of them are undercover civilian Operation Gladio people, maybe. I don't know. With the exception of the jogger, who probably looks quite fit, and there's that ginger guy there. You'll see him run in a minute, or you've probably seen him on the other video running. There's 3 of them that look quite fit and young, that they probably could be gladiators from Operation Gladio. But the other guys look old, and they're carrying briefcases. But yeah, again, that might all be part of their bullshit disguise. They might just be old-timers, you know? More senior members of Gladio. I don't know. But the fact this guy is, you know, pretending to do stretching and all this kind of shit. The fact that these guys don't even, like, acknowledge him, which means they're very comfortable with him. That means they know him, yeah? Very suspicious. But at the time, I was focusing more on him, and I didn't really look at the crowd. It's only looking back at the footage I realised that the whole crowd is very peculiar, very off. So once the large bulk of this particular part of the protesters finish, you'll watch all these guys, they all suddenly rapidly move in the opposite direction. As if someone's talking into a little earpiece saying, go, go, go. Go to your next destination. Well-dressed people in office clothing, jogger. Yeah, and look, it's like someone said something to them and they all just head off. Yeah, and they all head off in the same direction. As you just saw in the previous video, yeah, they all jump over the fence and they'll go running up the stairs. This is my other camera. I dual filmed it and a little bit more slow motion. Well, there you go, look, bang, they all just head off. Like someone has just whispered in their ear, go to location, you know, D. Now go to location D. And they all go off. Like I said, at the time, I was focusing on green trainers there, the jogger. But you can clearly see they're all part of the same group. That ginger guy there and the black guy that are walking together. Bit more athletic, look at that, you know, jumping over the fence there. And they head over to the stairs. If you keep your eye on the background there, they all go shooting up the stairs.